What up, you guys? This is Danny B, and you're watching The Trash Stash. And recently, I was watching an episode of Cheers, and I noticed that the opening is actually kind of scary. You got all these dead people, all these ghosts, all these fucking 1920s dead ghosts hanging out in a bar. And I was like, that's a little bit scary. That's kind of like that picture in The Shining. But, you know, aside from the creepy opening, I've always loved the show. Love all the cast members. You know, they've all done a bunch of films, too. So I thought I'd look up the horror movies they've done and list the horror movies they've done. So here we go. Here is The Horror of Cheers. Now, first up, we got Sam Malone, played by Ted Danson. I believe he's only done one horror movie, but it's a significant one. It's Creepshow. He was in Creepshow. Alright, next up we got Norm, played by George Wendt. He was in House and an episode of Tales from the Crypt and also an episode of Masters of Horror. And I saw that episode and it was kind of weird. He's like hallucinating that people in this family are alive, but they're all skeletons. Kind of weird. Alright, then we got Cliff, played by, I believe his name is John Ratzenberger. Yeah, he was in House 2. So the first one had George Wendt, and the second one had John Ratzenberger, or Norman Cliff. Alright, then we got Frasier, played by Kelsey Grammer. And it says that he's only done one horror movie, and it came out this year, called Guardians of the Tomb. Some mummy movie. But it's also an honorable mention that he plays one of the creepiest Simpsons characters, Sideshow Bob. Alright, next up we got Woody, played by Woody Harrelson, and I always thought that was kind of funny how they just made his character's name his real name. But he was in, you know, Zombieland 2, and Natural Born Killers, if you want to count that as horror. Then we got Carla, played by Rhea Perlman, I believe her name is. It didn't really say she was in any horror movies, but she was in a thriller called Stamp of a Killer. I have no idea what that is. I'm guessing it's, you know, some kind of murder mystery or something. Then also an episode of something called The Last Halloween. No idea. But, you know, that's all I could find on her. Alright, then we got Rebecca, played by Christy Alley. She was, first off, I'll mention that she was in a comedy called Summer School, which had like a pretty graphic, like gory school scene where all the kids are like wearing all these like dead like makeup and stuff, like horror movie makeup. It was pretty gruesome, but that's not a horror movie, but that's an honorable mention. Then she was in Village of the Damned. And then this is where it gets good. She was in one called Blind Date. And I was like, what the fuck is that? So I looked it up, and the trailer looked so good that I picked it up. It looks like it's some kind of horror movie about a blind guy who sees through his Walkman, and he's trying to solve a mystery, and you got some kind of psycho running around with a knife. It looks cool. I'm going to watch it and probably do a review on it. Alright, then we got Diane, played by, I actually forget her name, but, you know, the Diane girl from Cheers. It says she was in one thing called Diagnosis Murder, and there's a TV show. Probably not horror at all, probably just like a soap opera or some shit, but that's all she's been in. Alright, then we got good old Lilith, you know, Frasier's wife, who's low-key kind of a babe. She was in The Faculty. Good 90s sci-fi horror movie, The Faculty. Alright, then what about good old Coach, the old man? It says he was actually in an episode of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. And the episode was called The Final Hour. Or, no, The Final Escape. I think I've heard of this episode. I think it's where a guy is trying to escape from prison, and he's going to do it by putting himself in a coffin. And then the guy that's supposed to bust him out, when he's buried in the ground in the coffin, there's a guy that's supposed to, like, dig him up. he turns to his right, and then the guy that's supposed to dig him up is dead in the coffin with him. And I always heard about that episode. I think that's the episode. I want to check that out if it is. All right, then we get Old Paul, the third of the barflies. There is Norm, Cliff, and then there's sometimes Paul. And Paul is the guy that was in Office Space, like the two Bobs, the guy firing everyone, the fatter guy. Yeah, that's Paul. And he's actually got kind of a good resume for the horror. He's in Boogeyman 2, The Demonsville Terror, The Pack, My Best Friend is a Vampire, and 976 Evil, which I believe is directed by Robert Englund. Alright, and then last up, we got Harry the Hat. The guy that was, of course he went on to be the guy in Night Court, but he played a scam artist in Cheers. And he was in It from 1990. Yeah, he was Richie, the grown-up Richie. And then it says he was in an episode of Tales from the Dark Side and an episode of Tales from the Crypt. And I remember his Tales from the Crypt. It's where he plays a comic book artist, and the stuff he's drawing is coming to life in real life. So there you go. That's the horror of Cheers. Sometimes you want to go where everyone knows your name. And my name is Danny B. You're watching the Trash Stash. Let me know if you want more horrors of things like this. Like, I could do Seinfeld, Friends. I can do all that shit. So hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. And let me know. Peace out.